Good morning, students. Today we study about the inequality axioms. So first we understand what is economic inequality. Economic inequality is unequal distribution of income and opportunities between different groups in society. It is a concern in almost all countries around the world, and often people are trapped in poverty with little chance to climb up the social ladder. But being born into poverty does not automatically means that you are always stay in poor. Education, which enhance your skills, and training policies can be used alongside social assistance programs to help poor people out of the poverty and to reduce inequality. Several countries are also now exploring whether the universal basic income could be the answer of this inequality. The global coronavirus pandemic is likely to the further inequalities as travel restrictions, national-wide lockdowns, and the virus itself affect the people within and across nations in the widely varying ways. So, what is the conceptual background of this inequality axioms? Why we propose, why we measure the inequality in terms of axioms? So, if we talk about the inequality, there is no any self-defining definition of inequality, as its definition may be depend upon the economic interpretation as well as the ideological and intellectual positions. If we compare total income to a birthday cake, inequality can be thought of as deriving from the way that a cake is divided among the individual. As we know, when the birthday cake is distributed among the individual, some have the cherry part, the some have the cream part, and some have the bottom part, and then we see that there is no any equal distribution of that particular cake. So suppose your income is like a cake and then we divide it, so the division is deviate from the benchmark. So we can say that if we are deviate from the benchmark for income distribution, that means we are in uh, poverty, or there is a unequal distribution of income. Economic attitudes as well as ideological and intellectual position may cause different views about the size of inequality, its relevance, and policies that might be implemented to deal with it. Furthermore, income inequality might be seen as a part of a more general concept of economic inequality, even though income conditions are often a good proxy for economic conditions. Because normally we see that the economic conditions are based on your income conditions. Because the income shapes the people's standard of living or people living standards, and it is generally highly correlated with the well-being of humans, or we can say individuals. So we can say here that the income has correlated with the well-being. If you have a high income, you have a higher side of the well-being. Income inequality. Income inequality mainly focus on a concept of inequality of outcomes. There are basically two terminologies we can use, that is the inequality of outcome and inequality of opportunities. Normally we seem that they are a similar type of words, but no, there is a difference, because there is a relationship between the two concepts whenever we talk about the income inequality. As income inequality, we have first the income inequality of outcomes. So to understand the income inequality outcome is that if a student, he or she is poor, so it's likely to have a lower income, and because of the lower income he has a low standard of living. So this is known as inequality of outcome. Inequality of opportunities, that when the people are not receive the same or equal opportunities. For example, we can say if a talented student has cannot afford a university student because he is poor, so he has inequality of opportunities. It is better explained by Amartya Sen, his capability indexes, and in their capability indexes he talks about that the desirability is very important concept. So desirability, which is also related with the inequality of opportunities. If we see the approaches of to inequality, basically the approaches to inequality, there are two basic approaches. On that basis we measure the inequality. The one is known as descriptive and another one is normative. If we talk about the descriptive, it is more towards the value judgment about the nature of inequality. That means inequality is good or bad, or there are not explicit. Technically speaking, no social welfare function has yet been specified, or we can simply assume ourselves to be impartial observer trying to understand income inequality as a deviation from a given benchmark. So if we are deviate from the given benchmark, we see that there is inequality in the system. Normative is basically, talks about the ethos, and we have beliefs, and then we can say, we can here specify that the inequality is good or bad. So the inequality is good or bad, and so that is the when we talk about that the inequality is good and bad, that is a part of descriptive. But when we see that the how much is bad or how much it is good, it is, or how much we gain or how much we losses, then it is comes under the normative. The normative approach enables the analysis to compare the income distribution in terms of greater or lesser desirability. Desirability is very important, and desirability comes once we talk about the normative, because we are on the policy making side. We think about that, what ought to be, and this is basically the normative. We have the value judgments, or the value judgment on the basis of the desirability, where here is in descriptive method or approach, we have value judgment on the basis of some parameters, or if we have some social welfare functions. On that basis, we have said that if we are deviate from the benchmark, we are there is an unequal distribution of income, and we got under the vicious circle of this inequality. How to measure the inequality? There, as we know, there are two measure measure the inequality. One method is descriptive approach, and another is normative approach. When we talk about the descriptive approach, on the left side, we have some parameter on the basis we can differentiate between the descriptive and normative approach. So first we see on the basis of aims. The descriptive approach aims to take a picture of inequality, whereas normative approach compare income distribution in terms of desirability. Tools, inequality indexes, whereas in normative we have welfare-based measurement, and they are very subjective. Main problem, balancing mathematical properties with subjective feeling. In normative, we have unanimity on the value judgment not accepted. Because it is not expected, that means the value judgments are not there. We are working under the conditions of that. When we are in the normative approach, it will measure the basic rule is there, or we can say the basic problem which we have, that is a value judgment, and on which basis we don't have that basis to do this value judgment. Outcomes, if we talk about the descriptive approach, it's ranking based on the index chosen, and on normative approach, ranking based on the SWF function chosen for the wide class of SWF. That is a social welfare function. We can use it, we can say we are under the normative approach, or this is a measurement to measure inequality. When we combine both, we have the mathematical properties plus the implementation on welfare-based measurement. Then we create this axioms. So axioms are basically uh, you say it is a self-explaining principles which have both. They have both the qualities. They are at the same time, they are quantitative and qualitative. So when we talk about the axioms here in inequality measurements, so it's basically the combination of descriptive approach and normative approach. The role of axioms in inequality measurement. Axioms in inequality measurements are desirable properties of inequality measures. They define the way in which inequality measures should behave. Using axiom may help to choose among inequality indexes. When an inequality index is chosen, because it respects some desirable properties, or we can say that inequality measurement follows an axiomatic approach. So there are the five, basically we have axioms which can measure the inequality. So first we have the principle of transfer. And this is also known as Pugh-Dalton principle. This principle of transfer, you can say that the transfer of income from rich to poor or poor to rich. So this is well understand by, you have studied the, when you talk about the taxation principles, so there we have this Pugh-Dalton approach ki what type we impose the taxation, or what type of taxation will be imposed to the people. of particular country, those who have the resources or those are deprived. Okay, the next is the scale invariance. The third one is the translation invariance. The fourth one, the principle of population. Fifth is decomposability. We can anticipate that if an inequality index satisfies the principle of transfer, scale invariance, and the principle of population at the same time, it belongs to the class of relative inequality indexes. The Pigou-Dalton principle of transfer. So in this axiom requires the inequality measures to change when the income transfer occurs among individuals in the income distribution in particular. So there will be a change in the relative position of that particular individual. Income index should fall with a progressive transfer as income transfer from richer to poor individuals. The inequality falls because when we impose tax on the richer class, and the income which we receive from the tax or revenue which we receive from the tax, that is distributed or to uplift the poor individuals. So in this way, so they both are or some equal points. So the inequality reduces when we adopt this progressive transfer. The another way of transfer is known as a regressive transfer. In this way, when we transfer the poor income to the rich individual, it is not appreciable because it creates more uh, income gaps or the gap between rich and poor, and it increases the exploitation of the poor people. So to illustrate the behavior of inequality index, let us define a generic inequality index I. Let us also assumes an income distribution. So Y is your outcome of that, your income, total income distribution. So how your income is distributed. So you can see this, that is Y1, Y2, and then Yi and Yk. So the distance from Y and Ik is matter here. And then we have nth income distribution. So they are in the positioning is very important, where you are. So some people are on Y1, some people are Y2, and some people are on I and K. So in this way, they are distributed. The income is distributed. Now assume that if we have this progressive transfer with this delta occurs from the income Yk to Yi. So agar, this will be possible here at Yk to Yi. So we say where the Yk is more than of Yi. So as we know, the Yk comes after the Yi. So if the Yk is more than of Yi, a new income distribution yieldings are we have, and we see this result. So the change in income, and this is a transformation after that the progressive transfer, that is Y star is equals to Y1, Y2, and the relative change in the position of Yk and I. So if we add delta in Yi and subtract from Yk, and then the distribution is like that. In this case, the Yk minus delta is more than of Yk plus delta. That means the transfer does not reserve the relative position of the two individuals. Now an inequality index satisfy, that is your principle of transfer, that is your change in income, that is represent with in terms of inequality index I Y star is less than of the original one, because it gives a lower value for Y star than for the initial Y, because we are subtracting this applying we are progressive transfer. So what will be happen, there will be a change in the income scenario, and we subtract from the Yk. So here the Yk is more than of the Yi. So in this way, we can say that there is, when we do this type of distributions, we have normally we see that they are the original one is more than of the later one. So there are the two principles which adopt when we do this transfer. One is known as the weak principle of transfer. In the weak principle of transfer, simply requires an equality index to change when income transfer occurs. In this sense, it conforms to the general definition so far discussed. A strong principle of transfer requires a little more, in particular, that the amount of the change in inequality due to an income transfer be dependent only on the distance between individual ranks, independently of their location in the income distribution. So here the location, it matters. And the next we have the scale variance. Scale variance require the inequality indexes to be invariant to equiproportional changes of the original income. For example, starting from Y, we could obtain a new distribution multiplying all incomes by lambda. The new distribution in this case would be y star is equals to lambda y1, lambda y2, lambda yi, lambda yk. So what is the change between bonds we multiply by the lambda to all the positioning. So an inequality indexes scale variance, and in this condition, the status of individual will be the remain same. The earlier, so that means the inequality y income is equals to the change in the income, because the lambda is divided to all the positions of the individuals. So if the index does not change when all incomes are scaled by the same factor, the scale invariance means that the income changes are distributively neutral only if they occurs in the same proportion for all individuals in the income distribution. To understand this, if we give the increment of 10% to all, to the rich class, to the medium class, or to the poor. So all income will increase at 10%. So this increase in income is considered as lambda. So we increase in income, which we represent as lambda, multiply by the original income. So what you have is all have a gain, all have that upliftment. So there is no difference between the original income levels and the change in the income level, that is known as Y star. So the position of the person or individual will be the same once we adopt this scale invariance. So scale will be changed. Scale will be changed. Okay. And so there is no any change. The third one is we have the translation invariance. Translation invariance requires the inequality index to be invariant to uniform additions or subtractions to original incomes. For example, starting again from Y, that is the original income level, we could obtain a new income distribution adding theta to all incomes. The new distribution in this case would be y star is equals to y plus theta, y2 plus theta, yi plus theta, yk plus theta, and ynth plus theta. Therefore, an inequality index is translation invariant if there is no change in the position. That inequality of original is equals to the inequality of new dimension of income, that is y star. So translation invariance means that income changes are distributively neutral only if they occurs in the same absolute amount for all individuals in an income distribution. The next is the principle of population. And when we talk about the principle of population, it is basically replica. Or we can say here this index or axioms requires an equality index to be invariant to replications of original population. So the initial income distribution is Y, replicating the population would be given as. So there is a change in the status of Y star or Y, that is represent here as a Y star. So we have y1, y1. That means the original y replica in the second equation, that is y1. And the y2, y2, yi, yi, yk, yk, yn, yn. So that is, we have a replica when we apply the principle of the population, where all the incomes are replicated once and inequality index satisfy the population principle if the original income inequality is equals to the change in income by adopting the principle of population axiom. Next, decomposability. In decomposability, this is a very important axiom for inequality measurement because in this, we have so far discussed that inequality as an overall inequality of a given income distribution. However, inequality may occur among different elements of income distribution because all people from all sectors not face the same type of inequality. The inequality is differentiate between the different persons because the different person receive the income in a different way. Earned income or income from capital. Some people will have income, they have income, earned income, some have income from their capital. So there is a difference between the income which we earn and some create income from their capital or among the different groups of the sectors of the population. We have the workers, we have the pensioners, we have agriculture workers, manufacturing workers, and all receive different incomes, not the same level or same type of income. So because their income is different, so we have a different function for all these sectors or for all these individual groups. So in this case, the decomposability axiom requires a consistent relation between overall inequality and its parts. If the original income distribution Y is composed by, say, N group and has an overall inequality, that is I bracket y, that is original one, must be that. So we define is like that. So there is decomposed. That means we divide it into different parts. So we have a different function of each and every part. So the original iy is equals to iy1 plus iy2 plus iyn. So we have a different income inequality function for all the sectors, for all the uh, groups. So the total inequality must be equals to the sum of various groups inequality. So this is all about the inequality axioms. If you have any queries, you can mail me. Okay, thank you.